Hola a todos, feliz mes de la herencia hispana y latina. Everybody for being here. This is a dream come true for both of us. And it's a pleasure to have Dr. Novello here. Okay. Dr. Antonia Novello, 14th century general of the United States, was born in Puerto Rico, Boricua. She graduated from the University of Puerto Rico with a BS degree in 1965 and an MD degree in 1970. She completed her subspecialty training in pediatric and nephrology at the University of Michigan and Georgetown University. Dr. Novello received a Master's in Public Health from the Johns Hopkins School of Hygiene and Public Health in 1982, and a Doctor of Public Health in May of 2000. She holds countless awards, including the Legion of Merit, the James Smithson Bicentennial Medal, and the National Governors Association Distinguished Service and State Government Award for her performance during September 11th. As well as a membership in the Alpha Omega Alpha Medical Society and National Academy of Medicine, to name a few, and holds over its 56th honoris causa. In 2011, Dr. Novello received the Don Quixote Lifetime Achievement Award, and in 2020 was listed as one of the 100 Women of the Century in Science and Medicine. In a commemoration of the 19th Amendment, recently, in the University of Oklahoma School of Medicine, they welcomed Dr. Novello as a 22 model renaming honoree. The United States Hispanic Leadership Institute also in 2022 established that the Dr. Antonia Novello Humanitarian Award in honor of her service to humankind. In January, Dr. Novello will be awarded the Puerto Rico National Guard Merit Cross Medal, the highest for carrying out service honorably during the disaster response in Puerto Rico. On March 9, 1990, and Dr. Antonia Novello was sworn by the Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor to serve as the 14th Surgeon General of the U.S. Public Service. Her appointment marked two firsts. Dr. Antonia Novello became the first woman and the first Hispanic to hold this position.
On June 3rd, 1999, Governor George E. Pataki nominated Dr. Novello to be the 13th New York State Health Commissioner, one of the leading health agencies in the nation with a $49 billion budget, 1/3 of the whole NY state budget. Dr. Novello also served as the Executive Director of Public Health Policy at Florida Hospital. She also served as a liaison between the government of the Dominican Republic and its Attorney General on raising the awareness of domestic violence and spearheading efforts for national legislation invited by the U.S. Ambassador to the Dominican Republic. During the recovery effort after Hurricane Maria, Dr. Novello was involved in setting up community health clinics in the center of the island where she distributed medications, resources, and costs to multiple sectors with the help of the National Guard, Medical Force, and the U.S. Army. She was also instrumental in the establishment of the mental health clinics with the assistance of medical students of UCC and the National Guard. She has also aided the efforts of the National Guard in the aftermath of the January earthquake on the island, and at the time she was in charge of supervising the health of the people affected by the earthquakes, especially the mental health aspect of the people living in the tent cities of the 5 towns massively affected by the earthquakes. For such efforts, Dr. Novello received the National Guard Humanitarian Award and Sister Isolina Ferrer Award for excellence of service to others. During the COVID-19 pandemic, she has become the spokesperson and public health advocate for the prevention. I lost my place, hold on. Right. Yeah, for the prevention efforts regarding the virus and the vaccine, sorry. Currently, she is involved with Voces and National Guard of Puerto Rico in testing for COVID-19 and vaccinating the elderly, the children, and children with disabilities in Puerto Rico. Today, she continues her work developing, strengthening ties of trust as a mentor and creative agent of new initiatives in different sectors arising from the current need for access to health, disease prevention, and education for the masses. At this moment, Antonia Novello has become a health advocate for the new realities of public health in Puerto Rico. Did we miss anything?
She didn't want this to be too long, but with all that being said.
It is our pleasure to introduce the.
It's getting to the point that I almost recognize all your faces. You've been everywhere, or has I been me? You're the one that Dr. McBride has put me everywhere, but I thank you for coming, and I know how hard it is to come after you have been all day long listening to some lectures. But that's what is important. Like the title of this presentation is that we Hispanics are more than statistics. And I think that some of you here that are will be able to know a little bit more about yourselves, where you come from and where the other ones sitting close to you come from, and some of the accomplishments that come by being Hispanic. And in that sense, I also have to work with the dean. Dean Compton is here, and we should give an applause to the dean that comes to listen to what Hispanics are all about. I haven't seen that in many places that I go. The dean is almost like the invisible Hulk. And I really appreciate it. And I tell you, you guys are lucky. As I keep saying, you're lucky being in Dartmouth. It seems like everybody's trying to do what is right at the right time for the longest time. So I am really pleased to think that I'm here for the Hispanic Month talk. So my talk is we are more than statistics, and I think it's important for you to know that. As I have always said, when I was Surgeon General, I said the world owes you nothing. To believe that the world is going to treat you good because you're a graduate of Dartmouth is like believing that a bull is not going to hit you because you're a vegetarian. I also learned very much that if you do not know where you're going, you are already there. For more than anything, I learned that service is the rent you pay for living, and that service will set you apart. Service to God, service to country, and service to your community. But more than anything, I believe that when you go to the top, you don't forget your roots, your language, or where you came from. But I think that I have also said that the most important thing we have to do is to end the damaging stereotyping of Hispanics in this country once and for all. With patriotism, one of our Hispanic strongest traits, along with strong work ethic, loyalty to family, and religious faith, we exude all the values typically ascribed to being an American. We do not weaken the fabric, we strengthen it. Just think what the United States would be without the Latin community influence, the music, the food, the people. But more than anything, the fact is America is being Latinized from New York to Los Angeles, from Little Havana to Central Florida. Our set for life, our love for family, the culture, the traditional values are spreading to the mainstream and are taking added meaning to the broadened context. In 2020 census, it was estimated that the Hispanic population was 62.1 million. These new numbers made people of Hispanic origin the largest ethnic group in the United States, 18.7%. 1 out of every 3 people in 1 year were Hispanics, and the only other place that has more Hispanics than the United States is Mexico. Our projected Hispanic population in the year 2050 would be 106 million and 111 million by 2060, an equivalent of 30% of the population of this United States. See the importance of learning Hispanic like we were doing on Tuesday. And more than anything, we have to be prepared for the future because señores, whether we like or not, Spanish will be spoken here. So the growing Hispanic populations are reshaping the demographics of the United States, and for the first time during this decade, the racial and ethnic group in California and New Mexico are now the largest states with the largest population of Hispanic. And in 2000, 8 states had more kindergartens that spoke Spanish than spoke English, and I have to tell you that in 17 states, that's what's happening currently. So if they're in kindergarten, they're coming. The Latino population has grown about every corner of the nation, and today California and New Mexico hold about half of the population of Latinos in this country. And I have to tell you that is the fastest growing between 2010 and 2020, for states that we never dream about, North Dakota and South Dakota, 29%. When you look in 2019, 37 million Hispanics living here indicated that they were Mexican. And therefore, the Mexican population is the first one in this United States at 62%. The second one is the Puerto Ricans, which are 10.9%. The third one is the Cubans, 5%, and the Central South American are 14%. And when you look into this, Cubans, Salvadorans, Dominicans, Guatemalans, Colombians, Hondurans, all around the largest other groups, but at least 1 million of them living in the United States. So when I think of this, there are also 16 states with 500,000 Hispanic residents and about 21 states in where the largest majority do not know that the minority are Latinos, like Idaho, Iowa, Kansas, Oregon, Utah, and Wyoming. Can you imagine that? So Miami today is enriched by its Cubans. Washington, D.C. by the Salvadorians. New Jersey and New York by the Puerto Ricans, and the West and the Southwest by the Mexicans. So I have to tell you, a nation with one ancestry is really, and 1 week is a weak nation if you only have one race. I tend to believe that real solutions demand coordinated effort, and ignoring the talent of 1/3 of the human population that lives here is really actually mediocrity. I have a feeling that stereotyping the Hispanic is fueled by opinions, but I want to remind you of one thing. Rumors are carried by haters, spread by fools, and accepted by idiots. So please, by all means, don't think only of opinions, think of facts. This is really what people think about Latinos. Hispanics have the lowest level of education or attainment of any major group. Close to half of the Hispanic under 18 years live in poverty. Per capita income of Hispanic is disproportionately lower than any other one of the racial groups. Hispanics are more likely to be employed in lower paying jobs than the rest of the population. And I have to remind you, the statistics are merely numbers, so that's what people think that we are. They do not attest to the accomplishments and courage of the Latino community, and our true statistics need to be told. I have to tell you one thing, and you keep it in your head. Juan de Onate began colonizing New Mexico 22 years before the first pilgrim came to the United States. We didn't cross the border crossed us. So, is that Hispanics participate in welfare programs less than any one of the other ethnic groups. The truth is that Hispanics have a higher participation of the labor force by men that are Hispanics. The majority of Hispanic families with children live with mommy and papi at least 66% of the time. In the past year, the number of Hispanic elected officials have increased to making 52 Hispanic members of the US Congress, 45 in the House and 7 in the Congress. But more than anything, 61 Hispanics, most of them Mexican American, have received the highest military decoration our country has to give, and that is the Medal of Honor for Valor under enemy fire. 2 Navy, 13 Marines, 46 Army, and 42 posthumously. And today, 1.3 million Hispanics serve in the United Armed Forces. And with that, I have to tell you 16% are in active duty and 8% are officers. Moreover, they were in higher levels. Who would have thought that we have a Supreme Court Justice, a US Attorney General, 7 astronauts, 1 Secretary of the Health, 7 US Treasurers, all of them women, 105 presidents of colleges and universities, 2 United States Surgeon Generals, 3 members of the Presidential Cabinet, 3 admirals, and more than anything, a Secretary of the Navy, 6% Fortune 500 members, 10 billionaires, 26 Nobel Prize winners, 6 of them for peace, 23 Miss Universe, and 5 of them from Puerto Rico. But I wasn't bold. In 2022, Hispanics have reported $1.7 trillion in purchasing power, 7% faster than non-Latino groups, and to that I say, $1.7 trillion. Furthermore, Hispanics contribute over $250 billion every year in taxes. And as of 2020, Hispanics own more than 20% of all transportation and warehouse businesses in the United States, giving people 3 million jobs. Equally as important, there are 4.6 million Latinos-owned companies in the United States, making them the fastest growing segment of the small business and giving 34% of them in the last 10 years. Similarly, business with Hispanic ownership provide almost 2.7 million jobs in the United States, and last year was 100,000 job opportunities. By 2025, Hispanics will account for 12% of all United States buying power, and more than 75% of this demographic group will be using commerce channels. And as I said before, Latino markets measured by GDP equals 2.6 trillion, making it the largest and fastest growing market in the United States. And on top of that, we are extremely loyal to the people who protect us. So we buy and we keep buying from the same people. So I believe, and I truly believe this, if we're going to succeed, we must respond to the changing demographics of this country of ours. 338 million people. 159 million are women. 67,000 are beyond the age of 100. And in the past, we have 13% of the population African American and 18.7 Latinos. And I have to tell you, Hispanics in this United States are in a larger number than Asian Pacific Islanders, which is only 6% and 1.3% of Native Americans. 18% of us are below the age of 18 and 17% of us are over the age of 65. In 30 years, the largest number of people in this United States will be older than 65. We simply can no longer afford to cling blindly to attitudes of the past which are out of touch, or to follow rigidly outdated practices accepted by the mainstream. Like someone said one time, old-time conservatism should not make a mockery of our humanity. Having heard all of this, let us examine where we are in this millennium, where are we going in the future, and more than anything, what is going to happen to our families, and more than anything, the extension of ourselves, which is the children. Education. With regards to education, we're making progress. We're still lagging, and there's many challenges to overcome. More so when we're talking about the first generation of us who really wants to go beyond what is expected of us. For example, why don't you think we have so much more education that we deserve? First and foremost, there's the lack of information or resources that other students have access to at home, such as information about the true cost of college, types of colleges, types of scholarships, qualifications for entry, and college culture. We do not have that opportunity like everybody else. The lack of internet services or computer access causes students to miss the critical information on deadlines, financials, and course requirements. And information deficit is almost compounded because our family wants us to live close, and therefore they pull us back. So we end up going to 2-year colleges close to mommy and papi because otherwise they will have a crisis. So what happens? There's also a tendency to have a job. Hispanics have usually a job working 30 hours more after you go to school. And for that reason, 51% of us finish in 6 years rather than in 4. So even though a lack of financial resources is one of the largest hurdles, Hispanic students are very reticent to borrow money. Maybe because they are driven by the immigration status of their parents or of themselves. So there's an aversion to signing any official paperwork in where their name and where they came from is assigned. So they prefer to pay as you go rather than taking out large loans. Despite all of this, 72% of Hispanics have at least a high school diploma. 13% of Hispanics have earned a bachelor's degree. 12% have earned a master's degree. 2.3 Latinos have earned a doctorate or a professional degree. We have a long way to go. And currently there are only 60,000 Hispanic doctors, 331,000 teachers. Thank you God, only 188,000 lawyers, and 135,000 nurses. And equally as important, and more so, in October of 2010, driven by a real big surge in Hispanic education, 24% of Hispanic enrollment went up between the ages of 18 and 24. Attended college and hit the time high of being the largest number of people entering college in that particular time. So we are doing much better recently. But regarding health, we're not doing too good. In spite of Obamacare, the uninsured rate in Latinos is still more than double among people that are Latinos. 1 in 3 lack coverage. They are also less likely to receive health insurance through their employers, and more likely to be covered by Medicaid. The reality is that Hispanics are uninsured, even when they're present of a full-time worker in the family. Some 46% of Hispanics have no usual health care provider, and 53% of us go to the emergency room when we're sick because we don't have a provider. More than 8 in 10 Hispanics rely more in television and radio to know exactly what they need to do, rather than going to a source that is credible. And equally important, let's not forget that nearly 14 million Hispanics do not know any other language than Hispanics, and therefore they do not seek any kind of system where they are not understood and worth if they do not like the interpreter. They will tell you, and focus groups have shown this, that people of minority communities in this nation frequently deal with healthcare providers who do not know their language, who do not know their culture, who do not know their tradition, do not discuss health education nor prevention, and do not provide them with the same early access to high-tech diagnostic and treatment efficacies that are given to whites living in high-rent neighborhoods. This is not a perception, this is a reality. And when you look into this, do not fool yourself, barriers to care exist. And we must understand that knowledge alone will not suffice to take care of the Hispanic. Cultural awareness is going to be key. And eliminating the language barriers is going to be an important part of the overall strategy on dealing with disease knowledge and disease prevention in the Hispanic community. That makes you understand why are we pushing so hard for making sure that Hispanic English and Hispanic knowledge is known before you graduate from this institution. Remember, health has no political preference. Viruses do not ask for your passport or your green card to infect you. Healthcare in this country should be above politics. Emergency rooms for standard care is bad economic policy, bad politics, and it's bad public health policy. After looking at all this, I believe the time has come to follow the barriers and put them outside. We need clear thinking and absolute end to everything that is self-limiting. A real appreciation of the intellect, the training, and the accomplishments of Hispanics, and more than anything, an insistent self-appreciation of our worth. In addition, if we're to achieve success in reducing poverty, increasing education, and improving the health and prosperity of the Hispanic people, we must get involved in our communities and participate in what this great country has to offer. The time has come to have a piece of the American pie. And the time has also come to tell them at what temperature we want to bake. We were a minority with 62 million we are now in the big leagues, and the time has come to make a reality some of our dreams. So where do we go from here? To begin, we must know who we are, because by the own reckoning of Latinos in the national code, they do not recognize a national leader like the African Americans have Martin Luther King. We do not. We have no recognition of any leader. And when asking an open-ended question in a nationwide survey, 64% of the Latinos says, we don't know. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know where you're going, you're never going to get there. So we have to know who are we and where do we need to go. The problem is that we are so many Hispanic groups that we're talking, like if we are talking multiples of one, more like an echo rather than a single sound. I believe that all of us have to unite in a common bond, bridge our differences, even if the Cubans are the one who try to tell you what to do. I know what he says. I think for the common voice, and as we do this, we must give America what is the best in our judgment. Most importantly, we must earn the trust and not arouse the fear of minorities like ours, who also are in need of having peace at the same time. But more than anything, I believe that to start moving in the right direction, America first has to recognize how Hispanics feel and what Hispanics mean. Because for the longest time, our proud heritage and our honorable demeanor has been confused by people like it was a sign of weakness. And I have to tell you, for some Hispanics, honor is more important than life itself. For it's time for America to understand that for Hispanics, maintaining a sense of honor is the lifeblood of our people, and there will be no true respect without it. As both Hispanic and Americans, we understand very well what Benito Juárez says when he said, the road to respect for others is the very road to peace. So America, do not confuse honor with weakness, is our very strength. Instead, help us close the gap between what we Hispanic have worked so long to achieve and our honor sometimes does not permit it to play. I would also suggest that we need to promote equitable partnerships between minority groups in all levels of society. But especially within our inner cities and our communities, these partnerships grounded in mutual respect will, by our example, help children in the future to grow up being proud of who they are. Remember, values are easier caught than taught. Teach your children what it means to be a Hispanic, what is to be a Molina, what is to be a Perez. Teach them what you expect of themselves and what the world expects of them. Spend as much time commending as reprimanding. And when you do that, I have to tell you that we, as Hispanics, in striving to be accepted in this society, let us not lose our sense of Hispanic heritage, our traditions, honoring family, and our passionate appreciation for life. Everything that we must do to improve our lives and that of future generations must be done with great care of our traditional values. For how can we expect to raise our children to value our traditions and customs and to respect the cultural traits that shape our individuality when we lose our identity and self-respect? Above all, let's ensure that the ferocity of future political debates in this country regarding social policy does not make Hispanics a political football used for whatever it is, a conservative or a liberal, whatever they call themselves, as merely rhetorical tools to win an election. Politics is political. I know from experience. But there is never any excuse for turning the human needs and dreams of people like us into the hollow promises of aspiring politicians. We should know better than that. In this complex society where family values have become the political issue, Hispanics do not need to proclaim it to the world. We were born family and we will die family. And at this moment, we will teach this country what Hispanic families are about, not by talking about values, but by living with values. So, having said that, allow me to mention 10 principles that I have used during my life that I think I'm here to be able to share with you. And I accompany them by a quote of a very important person, and then sometimes of the quotes they were a Rosado show. If I don't hear one more applause, I'm going to shut up. Okay? Okay. Today, the one that is there, feel like a certain, be a bird, I'm a bird. Looking good, kid. Now, 10 principles that I have used during my life. Number 10, be a pioneer. Don't ever be afraid to forge in new directions. And when you think of pioneers, remember Rosa Parks, the seamstress who became the founding member of the civil movement in this country, who died 17 years old when she was 92. Her simple act of defiance, refusing to give her seat on a bus, changed our country. After her death, Jesse Jackson, speaking on behalf of the African Americans, said, "He sat down in order that we might stand up." So don't be afraid to be number one, ever. Remember, the Ark was built by amateurs and the Titanic by professionals. Number 9, do not deny your roots as you walk the ladder of success. Do not deny your roots as you walk the ladder of success. For if you deny your roots, you have no integrity, you have given up your dignity. Colleagues, nothing is worth the loss of your integrity, your reputation, or your self-respect. If you cannot honor your racial, your cultural, your moral, and your social concepts inherited from your ancestors, then how can you demand it from the rest? Remember, people without knowledge of their past, of their origins and their culture are like trees without roots. Eventually, they will fall. Number 8, never underestimate capabilities. Somebody else will do it for you. Remember, as it has been said by Mr. Roberts, your most worthy efforts will be scorned by your peers, for it is they who suffer the most when you excel. Remember as well that as a chief achieved greater success, the jealousy that others feel for him or her will intensify. So do not squander your energy fighting every stupid little fight. You will be depleted when you need to fight the important ones. And remember as well, you have enemies. Good. It means that sometime in your life you stood up for something that you believe in. And in that case, remember that great people discuss ideas. Average people discuss events, and little people discuss. Remember as well, a lion does not lose sleep over the opinions of sheep. Number 7, achieve the highest level of education. It is the key to the door of opportunity. While getting education, remember the complete professional must be humble in what facts he or she does not know. Socrates said that if he was the most intelligent man in Greece, it was because he knew what he did not know. No matter how educated you are, as I said before, never make a decision when you do not understand the issue. And above all, learn to say, I do not know. If you do that, eventually you will be saved from many embarrassing moments. And remember as well, you don't have to be brilliant to be successful. The greatest danger for most of us is not that our aim is too high and we miss it, but that our aim is too low and we reach it. Number 6, set goals for yourself and do so, make them realistic, and always share them with someone who trusts you. In pursuing your goals, wherever you run into a wall, find a way to go around it if you cannot learn how to knock it down. Lament, if necessary, do not dwell too long on your bad moments, lest they rise to rule your emotions forever. When you are unhappy at your work, do something about it, otherwise you are the problem. Remember, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent, and as someone used to say, I used to walk in a room and wonder if they like me. Now I walk in a room and I wonder if I like them. Now, number 5, when you go to the top, do not forget to owe something back to your peers, your community, and your family. And as a woman, when you get to the top, do not deliver the sermon of equality, live by that. I mean, do not practice the abuses of power that you so much criticize. By that I mean the likes of withholding information, leapfrogging sovereignty, displacement of disturbing professionals, unfulfilled promises, and inequity of salaries. Not one of these should be used to keep a woman down, especially when it's you, a woman like me. Equally as important, do not forget that being a leader is often very lonely. So if you want to be one, start preparing for now, and you will be lonely. There's no doubt about it. But above all, remember that most successes result from group efforts. Do not forget to network. You will not get anywhere without networking. And give your insight on the attitudes necessary to break into a new field. Do not forget to network. Number 4, don't be afraid to speak your mind. Remember to first be who you are and say what you feel, because those who mind do not matter, and those who matter do not mind. Remember as well, be more concerned with your character than with your reputation. Because your character is what you really are, and your reputation is what others believe that you are. Well, my friend Deborah used to say, don't get stuck in being a hero in your own life. Whatever you do, do not use someone else's vision as a guide for your own life. So many times we follow the advice of so many people who do not have the best of us in their mind. Above all, do not take everything personal. Be factual, but not just emotional. Do not repeat the mistakes of your ancestors and predecessors. And do not let disappointment drag you down. Be assertive without being bullish. And number 3, take care of yourself, spiritually, physically, and emotionally. Remember, we either make ourselves miserable or we might make ourselves strong. After all, the amount of work is the same. Remember as well, when it comes to your own life, you don't have to get it right all the time. Perfection is not required. There's no reason to perpetuate the fantasy that we can fix it all, be it all, do it all, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Above all, practice assertiveness. And not follow the words that you want to say or that you need to say, but above all, get accustomed to speaking up for yourself as if you were only your best friend. And number 2, never lose your sense of who you really are, even when others believe that they know you better. Always be a first-rate version of yourself instead of a second-rate version of somebody else. You were born an original, so don't you dare die a copy. But above all, never settle for just looking good, because at the end you will have spent a great time looking good, which you will not be living very well. Remember, being a lady is like being powerful. If you must tell the people that you are, you're not. Number 1, plan big, dream of greatness. Just think big for yourself. And remember, the penalty of success is to be bored by the attentions of people who formerly ignored you when you were nobody. So remember, no one has the right to reign on your dreams, and when the day comes that you are on top of your life and you have accomplished everything you want, thank God. Take time to thank God, and thank all of those who made it possible for you to be where you are. But more than anything, be sensitive to the ones that blocked you. Some of them didn't know that they were doing it, and some of them now you have left them so behind that you waste your time thinking about that. And remember, the best revenge is success. So at this moment, I have to tell you, remember one thing: talent is God-given. Be humble. Fame is man-given. Be grateful. Conceit is self-given. Be careful. So for that, I leave you with 2 proverbs. The first one is the Nigerian proverb that says, not to know is bad. Not to want to know is worse. Not to hope is unthinkable. and not to care is unforgivable. So I leave you with the words of Jehuda Bauer, the great Holocaust historian, who used to say there are 3 extra commandments that we should cherish and honor as we honor the 10 that we have followed since we were born. And the first one is thou shalt not be a victim. The second one is thou shalt not be a perpetrator. And the third one is thou shalt not be a bystander. Don't let anyone say that a graduate from Dartmouth or a Hispanic, as we all are, has ever been a bystander in the lives of our fellow man. Thank you very much. Good luck, and I hope that you understood that we are much more than statistics. Thank you for coming. Well, we are here to ask questions. I will be more than glad to answer them, knowing that when I'm giving a lecture, many of the questions is not here, and they ask the question that I would like. I feel in Spanish, but I'm here, there's no doubt, I need to answer. So.
That question, I will be my.
They can speak now.
Yeah, I can speak
No, we have
loud.
the mic.
So do you think that this rise in like Hispanics in 2010 in enrolling in more colleges coincided with the Dream Act being passed and sort of the effect of legislator in our opportunities?
I have a feeling that we're getting out of our seats, waiting for others to do what we need to do ourselves. And I tend to believe that if you are visiting your congressman or your congresswoman or your senator, and eye contact and the needs that are brought forward as you feel the lack of us getting to the top, I think that has been very crucial. But we have many more laws that are being passed that are very important. But remember one thing, when I work in UNICEF, the president of UNICEF, he said something that I love. He says, what you cannot accomplish by altruism, get it by guilt. And therefore, if you make them feel guilty that they are living the best they can and we still haven't accomplished what we are 18.6% of this United States of America. And we came here 22 years before the first Cleveland guy came here. Remind them of those little things. They don't know them. Be respectful, but make sure that they know that we are not invisible. And that when as I have said until I am blue in my face, speaking with an accent is an honor. It means that I know one language more than you. Because I speak with an accent, but I don't think with an accent. And so don't apologize for what you cannot really feel that you have to be perfect at your pronunciation. I have found that most of the people with heavy accent, Einstein, he was really hard to understand, but look where he was. So at this moment, don't feel bad for having an accent. Be happy that you're here and know 2 more languages. But remember, 14 million Hispanics do not know any other language that is not Spanish at home. And therefore, they come to be visiting the hospital. If they do not like the doctor, if the doctor doesn't try at least to relate, they will leave because honor is more important than life. And if they feel mistreated or misjudged, they leave. They will never see them again. So it's very important that at least in the 2012, we had 24% of us serving college for the first time in births. And that maybe is the way that we have to start, because 72% of us only have a bachelor's degree. Graduating from high school is not tolerable, and 18% of the dropout rate. So when that is the case, most of them face the financial issues. They are tend to work so they can bring money to the family rather than believing that education is not that important. Sometimes we cannot judge people unless we tell them the benefits of an education. And sometimes we assume that everybody knows it. And doing this is that when I realize that most of the time, Hispanics don't borrow money to come to college because they are petrified of the status that they are and it's discovered. So when she said that the ice is here for you, sometimes I have to say that it was not ice because I said, what?
Change the name of the office.
So we have to really take our parents that without an education, we're not going to get anywhere. Eventually, even us will need 2 degrees to be successful. So can you imagine what will be the in the first? And that thing about the very first one that graduates, remember, you're not better than anybody else that didn't go to college just because you're here. But it's your role to bring somebody else with you. In life, you always bring somebody else with you to your path, and you will feel much better when you're right. So, tell people that you have education. You don't have to be here. I feel very sad that most of us go to 2-year colleges. Could it be that is what we can afford? Could it be that is the only one that opened the doors? Could it be that I never heard of anything else? Could I do like my neighbor always tell me that the only award there is the Bell award, and nobody thinks of all the other opportunities for going in college that pay your education if you have good grades, and if you really, really want to. The United States Public Health Service will pay your education. I will pay your tuition, I will pay your books, I will pay your boarding, I will pay everything. You will pay me back with service for as many years as I pay you, and then you will start as a lieutenant. So take more than just the Pell Grant. There are many other opportunities, but the neighbor is not, and tomorrow, and she only knows about that one, and the only reason you that can be, it's a problem. You become the change, an agent of change by telling the truth. Honorably, because you know your parents send us to the room, go to your room, and they don't even pay attention to us, but you don't see something.
Oh, right here, online, 42 people online.
Yeah, we have a question from online. Monique Gary is asking, what can be done to bring attention to the needs of the U.S. territory Puerto Rico, treated like a third world nation and not part of the U.S., and how can students at ISO mobilize to help?
I don't believe we're a third world country. When you produce 5 Miss Universe, we're not shocking. We have suffered enough because if you look at the Caribbean, here's the Atlantic Ocean and here is the Mar Caribe. The Mar Caribe is like the Gulf, hot as it can be. So if any hurricane turns below, we're going to get it because the temperature just loves to produce hurricanes. But I think that the problem is that maybe we have not utilized correctly the money that came from the CARE Act and the money that came from FEMA during Maria. Millions of dollars. Where did they go? Well, now, right now, we have 8 mayors who have been visited by the FBI because they were appropriating monies that were not theirs. So if the public is known the money that came and where did it go, the biggest amount of money was wasted in the electric grid, and that's why Puerto Rico is always in the dark. So what was the first thing that followed with Fiona? The electric grid. So we're back in the dark. And it's really interesting that 2 days before, the people were about to march to get the people in front of the electric grid out of Puerto Rico. And now they promise that they're going to fix this more than what they did 5 years ago. So Puerto Rico is divided. The largest number of them really are into the Republicans, which now they really are fighting with them. They want to be a state. Then they have the Democrats that basically at this time they haven't been in power for 12 years, so they're trying to find their roots. And then for the first time, we were divided by 2 other political parties that got numbers in the Senate and in the House. So we have for the first time not 2 parties in power, but we have 4. So who's up first is very hard. So at this moment, we have even people trying to make us the plea for being a state, when we basically have all the advantages except we don't have the Medicaid numbers for money, nor the Medicare money that you guys get here. So if we become a state, we will have a car that we will have at the level of Alabama and Mississippi, but we don't have the same amount of money, even though the poverty is big. But third world, I think if you tell that to a Puerto Rican, there's no big fun. It's 100 by 35 and it's an island with a lot of advantages and divided now by 4 political parties and the elections that are coming. It's just very hard to know that storm has divided us even more. So President Biden declared 100% emergency and the money is coming to Puerto Rico to see how can we be helpful. But can we help? Absolutely. The governor said 2 days ago that we need no humanitarian help. And then he says, I regret that. Yes, we need humanitarian help. When Maria came, most of them said we don't need anyone to help us with the electric grid, and boy, we made a mistake. You need everything. There are more people who know more than you, and the island is so overwhelmed. Again, with the flood of 25 inches of rain and the mud sliding and the towns falling up for things that should have been done perfectly with the money that came during Maria. So yes, we need help. And now there's another storm coming out of Africa that already they gave the name. And then there's this one, and it's the area below that will not touch Puerto Rico, but will touch the northern part of Cuba. So up to November, we don't know what is going to happen. So Puerto Rico needs help, and anyone who can give it, I really think is going to be very much appreciated. And even today, I read that we're not going to have pasteles in Christmas because all the plantings are to the floor with the wind. And the coffee, also blowing the wind, so the prices are high and now many more prices are gonna go higher than that. So if you take coffee away from Puerto Ricans and tostones, there's gonna be a war. So any help will be wanted, and there's a clinic in the center of Puerto Rico that serves 8 barrios, that I was talking to them yesterday, they are still acting to protect the health of those 8, and they have the same services as the university hospital, and it's a little town, and with a man that really decides that his town is going to be taken care of. So one day when we finally are able to send some of you to learn Spanish with the people who speak it, I would really like for some of you to go and visit that clinic and learn what it is to really learn the language, talk to people, and more than anything, know that sometimes rural medicine and primary care is sometimes the way that the future is going to go, because you are going to touch, listen, hear, and feel what is being taught. And so my hope is that one day you will be able to visit Puerto Rico or any other part that is not here. And you will come back, and many of you will feel good for having done that. But now, if you want to offer your services, by all means, but for now, I think it's best to visit your senator and your congressman and learn how the government works, asking exactly for what you do. Yes?
Thank you. What has been your reaction to the recent treatment of immigrants by the governors of Florida and Texas who have been sending them to northern states? And how do you think we can move forward to create a more?
Yo creo que ese gobernador no es estúpido. And use
I think whatever you said was appropriate.
I can't believe that of all the places you have to send migrants. You send them to the richest quarter, thing where they are probably going to feel more out of place than anywhere else in the world. And then I have the feeling that they displace them and put them in another place. Well, this is where the governors are laughing at the joke that they play in the President Biden's agenda of immigration. I think that's probably going to occur again, the backlash has been too intense, and the migrants understood that they had been played erroneously for a little voice fight. We might not be in accordance that the migrants have to come here just like this and find a place to go, and the real way before was they waited 5 years to be able to get their papers. So it's very hard to believe that these are coming and finding a place while the others are still waiting 5 years to be able to come here to get it. But at this moment, the issue is what is going to happen? Where are they going? Why don't we take care of the kids who were born here with the parents that were illegal? Like we said before, that we want to take care of them. Take care of the distance first and then open the doors. But for now, how can we close the doors when poverty those places? And we have so much, and they're going to the Midwest. So that was a joke that didn't play very well. And if it was felt that it was something to show them that, hey, in your face, it didn't work very good. So I think that those who really have to fight very hard, they will want to move into something more than corruption.
So, how do you think we can move forward to create a more inclusive and cohesive immigration policy?
I thought that was something that we worked out 4 years ago and everybody had a plan, and all of a sudden it's the usual thing. I said it, that you said it, and more than anything, the competition of who said it rather than let's get together and do this. Immigration is going to happen. South America and Central America, in some places they need help, and this is the land of opportunity. So why can't they come here and find it? And now we have also the Venezuelans, and we have those who came over here. And so it's almost like you have to be at war, you have to be really persecuted to be able to open the door. And one thing that I see interesting sometimes, once we got here, we forget that we got here during the wars and during the persecutions, and we really don't want to open the door for anybody else. And that's very sad. I see it all the time. That's very sad. I got here, find your way, but don't come and take my place. It's just human nature. But I think we have to do something there for immigration. Maybe this is forcing us to unite for whatever next government is, to find a more decent way for people to live here. Because once they came, I don't think we're going to be able to send them back. I don't think we will be able to send them back. And we might never even know the amount that have come without us seeing through the border. It's a shame. Okay.
Thank you.
Remember, this is the first time I'm talking about opinions. Not about facts, but I do believe that was a great trick.
Okay, thank you very much for the talk. I'm a second year medical student, and I thought, like, when you were giving your 10 things to think of, I thought one thing that really struck with me was remembering your roots, but also shooting sort of for the stars, like shooting really high. And you said, like, don't forget your roots as you climb the ladder of success. And I'm wondering, as I move forward in my career, is it important to climb that ladder of success, or can I build it up for my own community in terms of like going there and being strong there? Like, is it like bottom up, top down? Do you have an opinion on it? You both-
All of us are different, and some of us want to grow out of the poverty that we came from. And some others will always feel guilty that they did not bring somebody of their own country community with them. Everybody feels their steps for happiness. And I believe that we have something to give back to the communities that made everything for us to be where we are. That just has to be done. But whether you want to be able to be a part of the solution by being there and helping them come from the bottom, with how much you can give, why not? But on the same token, some others really are so happy to get out that they never remember to look back. And that comes from your values. That comes from where you came from and what your parents put in your head. But I think we all must give from the back. Otherwise, why are we studying? Why are we learning? Why do we see the advantages and then cannot find a way by which we can share them? I think that, like I said, sometimes we become very cynic when we get very important. It's almost like, I made it, I'm sorry, it was hard, I don't have time for you. It's almost like when I want to find a mentor for a medical student, most people don't come forward. I don't have time, I'm in a clinic, I cannot see you. So we have to be able to, even then, to give us an hour of their time. So every teacher will give you a minute. You really have to congratulate them because that comes from the heart. That comes from the heart. So yes, go on, build your neighborhood. That's why I haven't left Puerto Rico since 2017. I said, if I'm the surgery in the United States, and we are United States apart. So why should I leave them there in all these next worlds? Because Maria was a chaos we don't believe. And then when I saw everything was well, the 6th of January comes and we have the earthquake 7.2. We have never had an earthquake. People here have no idea. I go to Puerto Rico now, and those 5 towns in the southwest, the road is really disheveled, and you can see the bridges are still like, oh, I might fall. So we have another one, it's curtains. But I always believe, when are Latinos going to be really accepted in this country? I tend to think, when the 6th of January becomes very important because that is our Christmas. And I have my day off because it's my Christmas day and the 3 kings are going to come to visit my children. And so that would be a day when I take every one of us involved, stay home and play with toys as they go into 20 people. But how can I ask now for recognition of the 6th of January when people remember is a thing that happened at the time? So we raise that. And then I do want the 6th of January was also the earthquake in Puerto Rico. So for me, it has a meaning. In the NIH, we never did a meeting on Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur. Nobody came. But the 6th of January and Holy Friday, it's like it doesn't exist. People work like it's nothing. So when one of those days becomes a respected day of our race, we have a life. Is that what it is?
And we also have a question from the Zoom chat.
It's for me. Me dijo un pajarito que vas a publicar un libro. I heard from a little bird that you're about to publish your books. Can you tell me more about your book?
I'm writing a book. And I want to finish it before I forget. You tend to forget, but it's really interesting. You have to buy it. As soon as it's out, which I hope it will be 2024 in spring, because according to the publishing houses, they say that the book fairs in April are the best ones for selling a book. But I have to tell you a little story. Everybody tells you, oh, we have to see each other as soon as the children go to college and they never call you back. The same thing happened with publishing a book. Everybody says, oh, do I know somebody who can really help you? So I trusted one of those. And I went ahead and dictated 24 hours of my life. And then the day came when he read in the newspaper that I was one of those 100 women of the century. And all of a sudden he told me, each page that it will be coming out of your 24 dictates, and it will be equivalent of $350 that you have to pay. and 50% of all the royalties. Hey, before that, I was just not 100, I was just one more Puerto Rican, and I said, you know, I don't like surprises. He said, what do you mean surprises? I said, we don't have a contract. So I sent a lawyer with property, intellectual property to visit him. And all of a sudden he sent me the 24 hours and then he put a note. I wish you well, her accent is awful. That has motivated me more to write a book and tell him in your face. But the thing that happened now, don't close your door to opportunities, it's unbelievable. Some close, some open. I belong to the Women's Hall of Fame of Seneca Falls, with Sally Wright and all those women that really I just go there and it's almost like. Hall of Fame, but maybe they were looking for an N, they didn't have an N in the alphabet, but I don't know what happened, but I am there. And I always remember the day that I became a Hall of Famer. The two women in the front row were Ferraro and Bella Absa. And as soon as they spoke, they left. And when they left, they said, well, we have to get the train. There's too many of you talking and we're going to miss the train. Sometimes you have to do things for respect, even if it interferes with your schedule. I will always remember that. I took it as a disrespect for all the others there, that some of them curriculum might be even better than theirs. So being a member, I always feel good about it. So the executive director of the Women's Hall of Fame, Conan, says, I have written a book that is about women in the hall that have made really great progress. Would you mind writing a foreword or something about it? I hate to write letters of recommendation and I hate to write forewords. But I said, sure. So I did whatever it is, she liked it. And then I'm talking to her one day, I thank you so much for bringing this to me because I never did. And she said, would you consider writing a book? I said, you know, I've heard it so many times. Sure, but I mean, at this moment, I don't know exactly what I'm talking about. And she says, well, I'm going to write an email to my editor, send you a copy. And if you ask me, that's on you, not on me. I'm just teasing the way, okay, happens times. So all of a sudden, the editor calls me back the day after and says, I have an appointment open in a month. Are you available? I said, in the day that you say, absolutely, but I'm going to be in Puerto Rico and the internet is very good since Maria. The day after, I said, I have an opportunity for in one day. Are you there? I said, of course. So anyway, he says, what would you like to do? And I said, well, I would like to write a book. And he said, women's autobiographies are no longer important unless you're a Merkel or the director of the show. So yeah, I felt like, hey, there goes my book. However, I think that there is a need for women's books in where there is lessons learned through the experiences that they have lived. That could be not only good for women, but good for men. And make it small, about 150 pages, and have always a lesson learned at the beginning and advice at the end. And so I said, well, I probably can do that. So he said, I said, well, you know, I'm forgetting everything and I need a course, so I cannot do this by myself because I can't. And he said, don't worry, I'll get you a writer. So the lady who I did the foreword called me and says, I have been called by the editor. He wants me to write the book, help me write the book. So now we are supposed to give the first draft on the 31st of December. Today she wrote, she says, I finished the last typing. And when she types, I read what I said in 24 hours and then I remember many things that I have forgotten. And that I send it and she adds them. So it takes a year for an editorial group to be able to edit themselves and find out if they want to use the name that you put in there or just the title of what they do. So they have to have legal action and then it gets printed and published. So it's the first time that I think it might work. And if that's the case, it's going to come in spring of 2024, but 23 is right there. 2023 is right there. So when it comes, I will have an open signing in here because I know that my bride is going to call me. I'm trying to see if we can have like a little smaller cost for students, or we'll just find a way so that we really. And the only thing I don't like about the book is that your privacy doesn't exist anymore. You will know a lot about me, but believe me, I think you will be surprised. I think the war is always won with the element of surprise. And you would be surprised what in the book you would find of all the steps that you had to go and all the frustrations and all the failures, and still you're here. So I have very little empathy for those ones who says it cannot be done. Yes, it can. If I did, so you can. But you have to read the book and realize what it says. So
Dr. Novello, is it on the 10 points?
I will include some of the 10 points because I think there's a lot of things to learn about it. And so I remember many funny things that happened to me, which I have written in the book, because the editor says, I don't want a Greek tragedy. I'm like, my life is not a Greek tragedy. But I remember one thing that happened that I put in the book. I was doing my conference as a surgeon general. I was a summer and we were whites. Arrogance is my middle name. I was finishing my nails, so I wouldn't do the microphone. And all of a sudden, as I'm doing my red polish, it falls on top of my head. That's what I said. It was 45 minutes, and I said, not even Martinez can get this stain out of here. So I went to the assistant secretary of health, who happens to be a Mormon. And when he sees me coming with that red mark, he goes, I was like, true. I said, swear to God, it's nothing to do with that. This is nail polish. I said, I ask you the biggest favor. He says, yes. I said, can I borrow your pants? This man ended up being one of the 12 apostles, and I borrowed his pants. So they're 1 foot long. So I went, sat with my speech, brought him the pants, which I'm sure he probably disinfected with Lysol 17 times. With his pants. But I always remember, when there's a problem, you try to solve it to the best of your ability. They never knew that I was wearing somebody's pants, and they never knew that my skirt was thrown away. It never came out. It never came out. But things like that happened when I was surgeon general, and I have written them. The other thing that happened is this office of the surgeon general has some money, $1 million they give you for your salary, the salary of your personnel, your furniture, your books, everything. And so I remember that then they told me, Dr. Novello, when the White House goes in every 4 years, there is a place in where they throw away all the furniture. You can go. Of course, I went in a gold cart. That's how big it was. I said, I have no money. So what I did is I got all those silver thin desks and I painted them in black, and they look wonderful. And then I got material for furniture, but I didn't buy new furniture. So when I finally waited and waited and waited, because the Bureau of Prisons is the one that reupholsters. But mine didn't come and didn't come and didn't come. And finally I realized that the prisoners assumed that the furniture was for the attorney general, not for the surgeon general. So they wanted to destroy it. Every time they reupholstered it, they ruined it. So that it wouldn't come to me. And then when they knew it was for the medical guy, not for the one in the court, I got my furniture together. What I did is, I would be sitting where you are, and here is the sofa that the first sofa that I got. And in that sofa, I didn't put cushions. I put Cabbage Patch dolls. All of them with something that made them sick. There was a deaf one, there was a blind one, and there was one with a little cane, and I put them there. I knew exactly who was visiting me from the way they treated those dolls. Some threw them on the floor, some sat on top of them, some held them until they got to see me. Kind of gave me a hint of human nature before I got to see them. Do I give them what they want, or do I just kind of think? But that was a lesson learned of how people treat people with disabilities. And now I basically vaccinate all the children with disabilities in Puerto Rico. And believe me, there's nothing harder than to vaccinate an autistic child, especially if he's older than 16. I run behind them, I sit on top of them, I do whatever is necessary to give them the vaccine, and the mothers appreciate it. But boy, it takes a lot of time to vaccinate an autistic child that doesn't understand anything, but you have to vaccinate them. And the trisomy 21 is the same way, but they're just much more Novello. So they put their hand and they hide it. They think it's funny, but we get them vaccinated. So Puerto Rico is 92% vaccinated for COVID. I have so many in the book, you will be laughing your sleep. All the things that happened to me during the time. And the last one was, I was sitting, this very important man, it was about 5:30 in the afternoon, and he kept going. I'm sitting with my back to the Capitol, and he's sitting in front, and he kept going to me. And I said, what's wrong with this man? And he kept, I have no idea why he was doing so. When I look back, there is a mouse right behind here, just looking at me like this, so of course I scream, and when I scream, my secretary goes on top of her desk, and I can accompany her. That's the first time that I realized that the United States Public Health Service and the HHS has a complete cadre of people with white uniforms that are coming to catch rats. I mean, all these people in white trying to get me that mouse that was behind me. We paid people to do that. I could not believe it. That happened. So it would be in the book. So, any more calls? No questions?
Hello, you see each other. I guess my question is, what advice do you have for us going through this, completing medical students, starting to look at specialties and deciding what kind of business we want to be? Are there specialties that lend better to becoming a leader of our communities? Or just for better?
Well, I think in today's world, you can be whatever you want to be. But most of the people believe that they want to be orthopedic surgeons, neurosurgeons, and OBGYNs, specialists in vitro fertilization. It pays well. The respect for the primary care physician, for the hospitalist, for the internal medicine is not as high in the eyes of the medical students as the ones who make the money. However, there's no better remuneration in life than the other three specialties, because you get to see them, touch them, be with them, know their families, and when you're a pediatrician, you must get rid of them by 21, because that's when they bring you their babies and this. But I always find that don't set yourself to have a specialty that you haven't tasted. Passing through the class, knowing the professors, and knowing if you really like it. You will always go into the specialty that treats you better when you're in medical school. The way it is, and you end up living as a resident in the place that you felt that treated you better when you were there. It's just the way that is. But I always remember that I love surgery. I love it. And so my husband had just finished a straight internship in Cape Western Research, surgical. So when we got engaged, he says, do you want to be a married pediatrician or a single surgeon? Well, I am a pediatrician. But I have never let him forget that I am the Surgeon General of the United States. Well, if you end up in something like that because it sounds like you're going to be happy or you like to school, there's always a top specialty within that. And so I am a pediatric nephrologist. Because that's another thing. We always choose a top specialty that has to do with a disease in our family that we really want it to happen ever again. So I am a pediatric nephrologist. Some of my members, my favorite aunt died of glomerular nephritis, and she died because at that time there were no transplantation, just peritoneal dialysis. So I am a nephrologist because of that. You always end up with something else that touches you personally. But don't localize yourself to a specialty until you rotate through it. Don't set yourself to one song. You will have so many opportunities now that I didn't have. I would have gone through. If it would have been my generation, I would be a military doctor coming out of West Point. I mean, it's just what I like. I mean, I was a Girl Scout. I had to be thrown out of it when I was selling the cookies in the student union. So I love uniforms. I love all that stuff. So I know I would have been one. But then I met Joe, and he was a blind date. It also works. And so I thought, yes, I'll be an American pediatrician, and then I became a nephrologist, but not just a nephrologist of looking at your urine. I am a specialist in dialysis and transplantation, so I am always critical. So don't circumscribe yourself to little. There are better things once you taste them once, and don't give up once you believe that that is what you are going to do. I always say, don't put limits in your life with time. Don't say I'm going to graduate from Harvard. Say, I will graduate from Harvard even if it takes me a lifetime. Don't put a time limit in your accomplishments because you will get frustrated. Don't put time limits, just do it. And remember that time will pass whether you want it or not. And therefore, this comes a time where you delay it. The one that was close to you will have finished the graduation and you will be behind. You know, time will pass no matter what. So you'll be a doctor before you even realize. and then and the pyramid bends segment, and then you start to go. Please west. Okay, so I would suggest also. Look in your class, in your first year class and in your second year class, immediately if you want to find the blind date of your life, because then the nurses take over. Find them. Do you think you have learned something at this conference? I mean, you have given respect to the Hispanic month by being here. Some of you I know are not Hispanics, but this is what is making Dartmouth different. You're trying to help everybody get to the top, and I think that's really crucial for the future of the multiplicity of races that live in the United States and that really are here in Dartmouth. So I welcome the integration of the groups, because that's the only way that we're going to be successful. It's not gonna be you or me, it's gonna be. Okay, so thank you for coming, and I hope we work on the immigration in the future. And I have a feeling that the governors that did that might find themselves a surprise when the time comes for the election.